Mr. Brown, did you have any comments before we proceed?
Well, just to explain those charts, those aren't even the on-road rule charts because those haven't been written yet. Those charts were prepared. I'm very appreciative of the Sacramento Metro Air District. There's a link on our website. You can get to that. It's a clickable chart. So as you go through it, you can click on some of those boxes and follow your progress. That's for the portable equipment rule, which is already in effect and being enforced, and the stationary equipment rule, which is already in effect and being enforced. And, it's the cumulative impact of all of these regulations together that we're hearing about. And I haven't included the flyer on the off-road rule because that's still just starting to be into effect. You've got let's say a timber company that has their own timber trucks, their own off-road equipment. They might have some diesel generators for on-site power that are stationary. They might have some portable light towers. They're being hit by all four of these rules at once. And, really it is a very serious threat to their livelihood. And I would emphasize this really isn't about air emissions at this point because we are using less fuel in California. We're seeing less trucks on the road right now. We are getting the emission reductions that these regulations would create and more because of the state of the economy. And I think that's a message that may have some resonance in Sacramento, I hope. And I'd also like to say Mike Anderson, Farm Bureau, has been very active on this issue, and I appreciate the work that he's done in the survey that he did, which Michael referenced earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Supervisor Delbert.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a side note, you mentioned AB 2121, and the original intent with this was to include both of those, but CEO's office felt that was complicating the issue a little bit too much, so hopefully we may be bringing a similar resolution back in regard to 2121 because of the impacts that has on us as well. So in an effort to try to keep it as simple as we could, we limited it just to the CARB, which is enough to kill us in and itself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no additional board comments, I'd like to invite public comment on this issue. I do have one speaker card already, Mr. McCowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. John McCowan. This is an example of the state using the one-size-fits-all hammer because we don't have an attainment problem like most of the rural counties don't. San Joaquin and some other areas of the state, they do, but they impose this blanket regulation. Mike Anderson was here. He had to leave. He asked me to make a couple of comments. He asked me to make a couple of comments on his behalf. One, he expressed concern with the whereas regarding the competition from international and out-of-state companies. He says that Air Resources Board assures him that that won't be a factor. The regulations will apply to these other trucking companies. So he's concerned that if we leave that in, it would take away from the credibility of it. So he recommended deleting that phrase. And then he emphasized two of the points that Supervisor Delbar referenced, and that was the lack of any economic analysis on the impact to rural communities, and also the necessity to work with other counties and state officials. And it might be advisable to identify some of those counties and send a copy of this resolution to them, and then I believe Mr. Anderson intends to follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCowan. Any other members of the public wishing to speak to this item? Seeing no one's come forward, Supervisor Delmore.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd move the resolution.
Second. Okay. There is a motion before us and a second. Just a comment. I believe the one section that Councilman McCowan mentioned in regards to competition, I would request that stay in because I don't believe that we can stop interstate commerce or the NAFTA agreement from having out-of-state trucks enter into our state and stop them from proceeding to do business in California. So I do believe there will be unfair competition. And with that, I'll look for any other comments on the motion.
I support the motion in the second as it stands.
Okay. All right. Any further comment? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Again, a unanimous vote, and I do appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board.
And I'd like to thank this board on a 5-0 vote on this. I think that sends a real strong message.
Absolutely. And as comment, as Supervisor Delbar proceeds to communicate with the other counties through his position in CSAC, it should be duly noted that this was a unified board on this item, and to me, it carries great strength, so I do appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, given the timeline involved with that, I would hope that you would have an opportunity to sign that this afternoon, and we can get it faxed off to Sacramento to our legislative representatives.
Okay. Any problem with the board with me taking that quick action? Okay. I will see to that, Supervisor. Okay, let me scan the chart here. We do have a air quality management consent item that was pulled. That was item 2, authorization air quality management district to return unspent Carl Moyer program year 7 funds in the amount of $62,000 and change to the State Air Resources Board in accordance with Health and Safety Code, et cetera, et cetera.